So, welcome back. After a couple weeks with some weekend travel, it kept me from the project. Did a little cleanup finally today. It was getting a bit atrocious and looks a little more workable down here now. First thing I want to do is introduce you to a new material. So, I found basic landscape rock. It's a flat rock, and when I got it, it was about the size of a basketball, the circumference of a basketball. Went out back and I chipped it down. And the idea is to make this kind of a rocky gorge in here, for lack of a better term. So when it gets done, it's going to look, well, not like that. Something like that with a little trickle of water, like I said. But I have a couple large pieces left I can chip up. It did not cut and break up the way I wanted it to, but we'll make it work with a little brown paint and some filler and moss. It'll look like something. And of course, I've got the area for the bridge or the trestle to go in here as well. Other big progress this weekend. I think I mentioned that I was trying to do this with things I had around the house and really trying to scratch it together. So I am using, we tried the experiment last time with the joint compound to make that transition from the wood down to my plaster covered styrofoam. We'll see how it goes. The test worked out pretty well. I did go through and sand the edges to transition a little bit smoother, or make that transition a little bit smoother. And then I proceeded to use up the very last bit of joint compound that I have. And necessarily putting it on thick so that the intent is I can sand it down. And in areas like this thing, it'll be interjected with some rock or whatnot. So I have a lot of forgiveness in the elevation and the contour and whatnot. Got my trusty weight there trying to hold it down. One note, I'm not particularly pleased with this. Some of these pieces, in fact, this new section of the riverbank, I glued almost 2 weeks ago and had under weight and under clamps, and it's still wet. It's tacky and holding it, but I may have used a wrong adhesive for this particular application. So Loctite's great, but not for this. The other piece we did just now, kind of hastily, is put on a little bit of a fascia. Again, I'm just using plywood I have around the house. So matching the contours, we'll fix that up with something later. And then here I left about 1/4 of an inch, again, just to leave some of the resin that will go in there for the water effect, to have some type of border. Not too concerned, it looks really smooth. Here I left it a little bit rough and I cracked my stupid board doing this thing. But again, we'll trim this down. I just got it tacked up because it looks a little bit better on the full process. The other bit of work this weekend is on one riverbank. The other riverbank I'm going to make somewhat steep. And I think I'm going to do something like with the rock here and make more of a kind of a rocky cliff face. The other thing, that will help with a transition to this table, if I ever have to, and someday will, move or maybe expand it or who knows what, I have kind of a natural break. I could redo that and make it something else. I've also been contemplating on this side. Right now, it's basically my tool and supply bench as you come around on this whole thing, is potentially starting another section over here. Somewhere in here, I'm going to do a switching yard. I'll have it on that section or over here, but I want to get that started. And I have some material to start that as well, but I'm not going to introduce that just yet. So for viewer opinion time, I may have described that this table was originally going to go back in an alcove of the basement. And that's why it's kind of built this way, with that large overhang. And it got me thinking, I have something to work with here. I initially was going to bridge my gap with that other colored piece of plywood there and make a turn radius, which I could still do. But as I looked at how I made elevation over here, I thought potentially I could cut this down and reduce it, maybe not as big as this one, but maybe just the width of the 2x4, the depth of the 2x4 rather, just provide to make some other interesting terrain effects in here, bridging and so forth. Kind of the idea is we're going to transition from a rural scene to kind of through rivers and ridges and swamps and whatnot into lightly urban area, into the yard and maybe a couple buildings or whatnot. But if you happen to watch this and have an opinion, let me know. I'd be interested in your thoughts.